Hello and welcome to the Public Affairs Convo with the San Francisco Federal Executive Board Public Affairs Council. Isn't that a mouthful? With Zella Campbell, who is with us today to talk about getting your brand ready. And I'm so excited to have this conversation because Zella is definitely a boss in this space. So, welcome, Zella.
Hi,
Um,
Brandi.
so, what made you decide to say yes to talk to me today?
I do so many brand trainings already, in the day to day. So it's good to be able to reach other people outside of just in the agency that I work in. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to do an interview with you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I am excited that you are here to do this interview because I've been watching not only your career, but the work that you've done for a while. And one of the things that I learned in my detail at headquarters in the communications division was just how much you are involved in what our overall brand looks like. And part of what I really like to do from a leadership perspective and even just being nosy is to figure out who's actually doing the work. And every time I looked into what we were putting out for the public to see, it was mostly things that you had created. So I am honored that you are here today. And the first question that I want to ask you before you just talk about what you've been doing at the agency is, can you tell me a little bit about why you are in branding and creative,
Yeah.
period?
So I will say just art creativity started probably since middle school, or let's just say middle school, high school, when MySpace was out. And that is what really got me into, I know, maybe, that's what really got me into that space. I was able to self teach myself a lot of things in middle school. I was one of the few people who had a computer that had just about everything on it. One of my classmates, his dad actually built computers. And so my dad bought a computer, got it custom built, and there was this program on it. I totally forgot the name of the program, but it was before Photoshop was out. And what I used to do actually would take layouts that I loved, and then I would recreate my own. And then I would match it up with the coding because I learned how to do the coding. So a lot of it actually stemmed from getting into the tech side of things and being creative at the same time. And that just kind of carried on through high school with taking business classes where I was in competitions for graphic design and I won at state levels in Georgia. And then taking all of the web and all of the art classes I could take on the digital side in high school, and then my degree in college ended up being art. So with that, I did not just want to know how to do graphic design. I wanted to know how to do all parts of it. So my focus is graphic design, photography, but then my internships also included the marketing side of it. So I was able to learn not just the creative side, but the business side. So that's where it started, and it kind of just grew and grew. And I'm happy that I was able to leave college and actually work in my field because there's so many people who graduate and don't even get to work in their field. So, but from that and getting into FEMA, I've grown a lot throughout the agency. So I've learned their ways. I've, taken skill sets that I do on my own and brought it into the agency as well. So it's been fun to be able to blend all that and still get to do something that I love. So it doesn't just feel like work, it actually feels like something that you enjoy. So you just keep doing it.
Okay, you threw me for a loop with MySpace because I did not think that you would know anything about MySpace. So now I don't feel so old. So thank you very much for that. As far as the work that you're doing at FEMA, again, one more question. The palette that we're able to use in government is sometimes very limited. And I've had people ask me before, like, how do you remain creative? How do you get inspired to use such a limited palette? So what do you say about that?
When it comes to that, I think a lot of times because of a lot of our projects have been so blue sometimes. Part of that is letting people know that there's more to our palette than just that standard baseline. So when I have those trainings and presentations with people, or people are calling me on the side and trying to understand our palette, I break it down to them like there's a whole spectrum when it comes to our palette, and there's different variations. So there's ways that you can play with that. And I also remind them like think of any other company or agency. They have their color palette and they stick to it. So when you see something like you automatically know that that is Adidas, that's Nike, whatever it is, because they still stay within their palette, within their fonts. I was looking at something yesterday when I was looking for a dress for a wedding, and one of the brands, ASOS, the way they take their photos, there's always like a person to the right, and then there's white space. So without even seeing the name of the company, I know that that is that company. I don't even need to look and be like, oh, I know what site this is. It says by looking at the name, I can tell by the photo. So brand identity is important, and especially with the agency like FEMA, where people tend to scam survivors during disaster. The products that we put out, when people see them and get them, they need to know that it's trusted. It's not just a rogue product. And we deal with that a lot in our agency. But just stressing to them how much brand identity is very important, especially for an agency like ours.
Absolutely. I like the way that you link what we're doing at FEMA to other brands who use specific brand colors as well, because it is important to ensure that you're building a brand with trust. So let's talk about the information that you shared. Let me pull that up so that we can really get into some of the aspects of what you do at FEMA. So there we
Yeah.
go.
So you can go on to the next slide. I'll kind of just be showing, I think it's like 4 or 5 slides of actual products that I've worked on that have advanced us in branding for the company.
Awesome.
So the video that's playing on the side is just kind of just a screen share so you can see, but this is our external disaster multimedia toolkit page. This was a project that I really wanted to work on when I got back from my deployment from New York. And part of this was making it easy for our staff internally, our federal partners, media to be able to come somewhere and get all of our graphics, get some evergreen messaging, some radio scripts. We even worked with Faith Base to create some text messaging documents where people can actually take them. Oh, it went to the other slide. Can you go back one? I think
I can.
yeah. Here
There we go.
we go. On there, it's also a text message toolkit that we worked on during Ian with Faith Base. And that way, our nonprofits could download this Word document along with graphics and send text messages out that they already have the copy and graphics that provide that information to survivors. So it's like the external version of the SharePoint page that you're going to show on the next slide. So you can go over to the next one. I think it went to the same thing.
There we
There
go.
we go. So this is advancing our agency and branding internally. So this is our internal SharePoint, which is like our one-stop hub where people can find our logos, they can find our templates, our writing templates, signatures, our style guide for branding and writing, our color palette that we talked about, and also all of our graphics that we made. And one of my favorite sections on this page that's showing right now is actually the downloadable icons. So this was the one thing that I wanted out of this because I was so tired of seeing PowerPoints that had just random clip art that did not match our brand. So we get super excited when we see people building stuff on their own and they're actually using the icons. And I get emails or messages on Teams all the time. It's like, I love this. And how often do you upload it more? So as we are continuing to make products, we are also adding those icons in the library so people can use them on their own. So this has been a lifesaver for us. We're able to point people in one place, especially with our templates. Our writing templates is the biggest thing So I am very proud of this project and that one and the external one. So we can go over to the next page. So, in these last two slides right here, this was a really big deal of one of the projects that I worked on. So, believe it or not, this is probably like the 20th version of what you're looking at right now. This project actually started off as 4 squares of images to 6 squares to let's start back from the drawing board. So, this one I would say was a huge challenge because we worked with our FERGs very closely. And
Okay, what is a FERG before you go too
yeah.
far?
So our FERGs are actual like cultural groups. So we have like an African American FERG, we have Asian American, Native American and Pacific Islanders FERGs, we have an LGBTQ FERG. So these are cultural groups that come together and they host events, and they also sometimes like do small webinars or do things internally. Some of them even have book clubs, but we work with them when it comes to these different cultures to make sure that we are being sensitive. We're not doing something that doesn't relate to them. And tribal is a huge one, and tribal can be very, very sensitive. So we also had to make sure that whatever we created with this, that it actually related to them. And we were also touching just about every tribe that we could touch possible to make sure that they were represented. And it's hard to do that. It's definitely hard to do that with tribes. So sometimes it's not by the imagery, it's by some of the different icons that are in there. So even on the mountain that's on the back, there's some like markings of, I think it's like a monkey or something that's on there, but it's little things that you would see engraved on the walls, to the birds, to the trees. So everything means something in there. But this was actually fun for me because in my earlier graphic design stuff, I did a lot of like cutout work. So between my director and what he wanted and trying to meet the FERGs halfway, we came up with this. And so we were able to, if you go into our office, you've probably seen it everywhere between our digital boards. We had it on a web banner. We've reused these materials multiple times. So on that top image to the right, you'll see it was used for a podcast because we didn't have a picture for someone. So I just used that same art and was able to make the circle image for there. So this was a huge thing because we have never had a strategic plan for a tribal. Well, I wouldn't say we never had one. It's been a while. So this was a new one. So this was really big for the agency. And then for the next slide, coming up, Brandi, you can go to
Now,
that.
let me pause you for a second because Jennifer asked a question. And
Oh,
just
yeah.
so that all of you know, you can ask questions in the chat and we can see what you're asking and we will respond. Can other agencies use your icons with attribution? So those icons that you're so proud of.
So they are internal, but if you are working with us for something, and we're happy to send them to you, so you won't be able to access them externally. But if you need them and you're working for us for something, we can definitely share them. Some of them are ones that our designers probably built from scratch, or we've probably downloaded from Adobe stock, and then we've changed them to make them our own for whatever we were working on. But you can access any of like our external graphics that has messaging on it if you need to download those and use those.
Now, a follow up to that is, why is it so important for us to make tweaks to those items that we would download from Adobe?
Yeah, because we don't want to just download them and just putting it out as it is, because we were not the original artist of those, but also they're usually not in our colors already. So we want to change them in our colors to make it our own as our brand. We may need to take or remove something that's not needed. A lot of times, like when you download icons too, they come as like a full imagery package. So I don't need everything out of there. I might just need one part of it. And that's what I want to use. Or I may be pulling from different image package or vector packages and making something my own, of making my own image. So even in this cover, the mountain, the birds, the clouds, and the trees probably came from 4 different vector packages. And then I created this as one thing together.
Wow. I think that also speaks to the importance of having someone like you on a team, if possible, to help to ensure that the brand is extremely consistent. So thanks for that. Let's see.
So the next slide, I showed this because building off of what I did for the tribal when we had our 44 birthday or anniversary, if we like to say, I think we say it two ways, but we building off of that, we talked about what we wanted to do for. It was like, hey, the tribal was a great success. Can we bring this over to just do something for our 44? And that was one of the ideas that I came up with, because this year it was very focused on the workforce. So just doing a regular vector that said 44 on it wasn't going to cut it. Like, let's actually bring in the people that we're talking about. And not just that, there's a lot of symbolism in this. If you really look deep into it, on top of the first 44, there is a slight little part of the 9/11 buildings that crashed. So you'll see that if you look in there, there's an article in there that was very positive that highlighted some comments from our administrator. In the back, there's a little bit of smoke from their FEMA trailers that they have, or just showing us, we do deal with wildfires and rebuilding. There's also a slight little image of our FEMA flag. Our administrator is very proud of that flag, and she wanted to bring it back this year. And then there's also on the left side a little bit of the tribal piece in there. So there's a lot of symbolism beyond just showing the workforce. And this was a very fun piece. So still being within our colors and in our brand, but still being able to be playful and bringing other elements into play as well.
I love that. I didn't know all those things were in there.
Yeah. And I don't think everybody noticed until we were doing the presentation. I was like, the 9/11's represented up there, and this is there. And I was like, oh, I see it.
It's
I
like,
think
ta-da! Now everyone will know. We got to share this video far and wide.
I think when you see it at first, it's just kind of like, oh, this is a lot going on and I like it. But then you start to really sit with it. So when I presented it, I definitely like broke down why I did everything that I did.
That's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Um, So, of all of the things that you've just shared, one of the things that I believe would be important for teams, especially public affairs officers who have teams or external affairs shops, to understand is, how do you work with everyone in your external affairs shop to then communicate these brand standards to the rest of the organization who wants to use, purple PowerPoints and things of that nature?
So a lot of people are probably, if outside of FEMA, you're not really familiar of how we work together within external affairs, and with the programs, because we have so many programs. So within external affairs, we actually have comms advisors, and we work very closely with the comms advisors because they used to be called liaisons, so they're that middleman, but they're now called comms advisors, and they are the ones who are, when programs are asking to create stuff, or they're doing things of their own, or they have contractors doing things and they send it into the comms advisor, they're that middleman that can say, hey, this isn't a brand, or we're going to send this to the branding box, which is to me, and I'll do a review. Or they'll say, hey, I'm seeing that we're constantly having these issues when programs are sending things in. Can we set up a branding training and walk them through how to use the templates, where to find the resources? And a lot of the times, it's not that they don't know how to do it, they're just not aware that it's there. But when we first did a lot of the rebranding, we did push all this information out through like our weekly, which is our internal messaging to staff. So between that and between the comms advisors, that is a way that we're able to push this information out. Also, I still work heavily in the fields. I still go out on disasters during the hurricane season. So I'm able, within my role in the field, to work closely with our team within external affairs to make sure that when products are coming through, that I can stop things before things go too far, if they're out of brand. So that, and I'm also able to do trainings while I'm out in the field as well. So the more that I'm out, the more that I'm staying stitched with our comms advisors, I'm able to get the word out. I'm able to work with people, and also sometimes when people find the creative page, since they can see I'm the main name on there, they'll reach out to me on Teams and ask questions, or they'll send emails. And more people are getting comfortable with the branding box now that I've been into this new role. So those are the big ways that we basically get the messaging out.
That's great. That's great. Now, can you speak to the fact that this took some time to do? Like, I remember before we had these tools, and now that we do, how long do you think it takes to get this message across to an organization as big as the one at FEMA?
Honestly, it's ever growing. Like we started rebranding as a whole, not just like with our brand, but also with our FEMA.gov website at the same time. So this was going on pre-COVID. And then COVID hit, and we were still in the middle of transition. So that also forced us to speed it up. So we're going into a challenge of, I would definitely say it was a bit of a challenge because we were virtual. We were learning how to work differently, and not saying that we've never been virtual. It's just now we're virtual 24/7 every day, and nobody knows what's going on. So you miss that interaction because before we went to this virtual environment, we were meeting with programs and everything daily just to go through their content and let them know what was going on. So um, between 2020 and 2023 and people, constantly leaving and changing out, I I would say it's still going. I wouldn't say it's just like a time frame, but I would definitely say within that first year and a half, it did start to get better. The more that the comms advisors were getting used to it and pushing that out with the programs, and the more that we were seeing things come through, we were able to change that. So it was an adjustment because people were so used to our old ways or kind of just doing things. And a lot of it also helped because when we were doing the rebranding of the website, and the branding at the same time, anything before 2017 we didn't bring over. So it forced the programs to actually have to redo all of their documents that they had that was in our old style, because we're like, nope, this is the branding. Anything in between this point and now moving forward needs to be inside of our new templates. So if you're going to make one change, go ahead and change the whole entire document. So we actually kind of force people in a way as well. And then even with the design stuff, just continuing to be more involved with our field staff, with our regional staff, we were able to change that. And it's still changing. It's still going. But I will say I've seen less and less of the old style. Besides, maybe today I did see one thing that was very old, and I was like, no. But it pops up every once in a while. But honestly, this year so far, within 2023 alone, I would say probably in the middle of 2022 and this year, from the design side, we have seen a huge difference in how much it has made an impact since, especially just having the SharePoint and even having the external site, because people were able to just find stuff and do things on their own. So that those two things, yeah, I wouldn't say it's like a one set time frame, but I will say it has improved a lot within this last year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So the words that came stuck out to me that you did not say, but that made me think that maybe people feel this way is like you have these liaisons who are kind of like the EA cops, right? The external affairs cops. They are like
Almost.
making sure that things are happening the way that they're supposed to happen. But conversely, because I know a lot of people in states and locals, and even us out in the region, sometimes we don't have as many people to ensure that everyone is moving in the same direction. So, what advice would you give to smaller shops to be able to incorporate some of what you all have been able to incorporate with a larger team?
I would say if you have a smaller team, maybe just identifying a person or two that can be that person that really, really focuses on brand and network and get more involved as much as you can. Have meetings with your different sections and say, hey, I would love to work with you more. Is there anything that you want us to take a look at, or where you feel like can be better and improve? So I think it's just more of just a matter of finding ways that you can get involved where you see there's gaps. And a lot of what I do in my role that's kind of in an island of its own is I identify a lot of gaps. And that is actually why the SharePoint came across, because that was one of the things I was able to focus on. Because when I came into headquarters, I was on the web team. And then eventually I ended up getting into this role that we curated that was for me, because we really couldn't put me in a box. We couldn't just put me on the web team. We couldn't just put me on the creative team. I was always working on both teams. And so in that, I was able to be a middleman myself because I knew all the knowledge of where all of the resources and things are. So maybe identifying who is that resource on your team, and that person can be that person that can build that bridge in between where those gaps are. So for me, I am that bridge between our regional staff, between our field staff, and even some of the programs, because when I was working on the website and the rebranding, I got very close with the programs and the people that worked in there. So they all know me. And so with that, I have that connection with them so they know they can come to me. And if it's not me, I will point them in the right direction of who can help them better. So I would really say just identifying a person of two is who is your resource on your team and who can help build that bridge in between where those gaps are.
That's great. That's great. Another thing that came up to me as you were talking is this idea of um, being the expert and going out and helping other people. And it reminded me of the fact that you came to the DHS Center and helped them to actually create what the brand would look like. And in fact, Marcus and Nicole say hi. So, um,
Hi.
how can individuals maybe whether they're contracting out with a contractor or think about how someone can come in and maybe work one group at a time to ensure that the branding is up to speed and presentations look really great and emails are on point. Can you just talk about a couple of the high points that you were able to create within the center to get people thinking about how they could do that in their organization and make change?
Yeah, so when I supported with the center, before Marcus came on, I came on as this part time detail, and I was able to meet with you all to identify what are the big things that people see from you guys that you want to look better, or actually look more in line with our brand. And those three things that I remember was one, it was the internal SharePoint. And being more active on there. So I laid that page out and also taught the person at the time was Justin, and showed him how to work the page and do the updates to it so you guys can keep it up without me. And then we also worked on your Gov delivery emails. So creating an actual template so that whoever was creating the emails could now go in there and just build it out on their own, but they have somewhere to start from. And we also updated the actual DHS page. And with that, we also created a sub page that was just for the news and events, because you guys do a lot of webinars. So on our website, we actually have an event feed page, which I would say think of Eventbrite. So Eventbrite for FEMA, we have that. And you guys actually weren't aware. Well, Brandi, I think you were aware, but the rest of DHS faith-based team was not aware that we had these event pages. And with that, now they're able to go on there, create those pages, or send in a request to our web team to create the page. And people can go back and watch those webinars, and they have a whole feed on their page. So we updated the actual DHS page, where I also did an audit of all of the content that was on that page, because there was a lot of information on there that was either old or links that no longer work, especially training. So doing an audit, relaying it out, adding some icons in there, creating a sub page to break out the content so people can actually find what they wanted to find, beyond just all of the other things that are on there of just information, because it's an overload of information. It's a lot, but it's all needed. But those are the big things. But outside of that, I also created a document for you all. Well, more so for Marcus. It was kind of like a cheat sheet to know who were all the people to go to within external affairs, what would you go to them for. And I also did it inside of our actual fact sheet template that I was able to build out. So that was on brand as well. He was just getting hit in the face with all of the things branding coming in.
With all the templates. But
All
he
the
said repeatedly that it's been extremely helpful for the center to already have that set up. And it was created with you as a detailee. So, you were in a detailed type of space with us only for so many, if I'm not if I'm remembering correctly, and people on the team who were willing to do the research and work to get you what you needed. Um, and so I thought it was a good example to bring up because I think other people can look at that and say, okay, I can't do all of this. I
Mhm.
can't create a whole SharePoint or create these masterful cutout images yet, but I can make sure that the main division in my organization or the main brand is taken care of in this way.
Yeah, and even after that detail, that also set me up to be on another detail. So I was actually on another part-time detail for DHS, and it was for I think last year. So I think it was the 20th or the 25th anniversary. I want to say the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And so they actually reached out for me to create a logo to represent the anniversary of it. So I made actually use like a branch from the tree. So there's like a 9/11 or it's like a remembrance tree. So the branch and then the ribbon. But I actually built it out in a style of artwork that I do outside of the agency. So that was fun because I was able to take what I do and bring it into the government side and have fun. And it wasn't so rigid, but I still actually use the DHS's blues. I didn't step outside of the brand as far as the colors, but I was able to have fun creative wise and still stay within brand. So I actually believe it's inside of the memorial building, which I did not go to when I was in New York. And I was right beside it because actually our Region 2 office is the new World Trade Center. So I will go next time I go to New York and see if it's in there.
Yeah, I think you really got to go. Jennifer asked a question. Is branding only about how to convey visually?
No, there's also the writing piece of it. So when we did our rebranding, we also did a FEMA writing guide. And we follow AP style, but we also made adjustments to what made sense for our agency and our voice. So thinking of we're one agency, like they say, one band, one sound. We are one agency, one voice. So it's also in the style that we write. So for us, we try to stay very neutral in our tone. We try not to be negative, but we also try to stay as positive as possible. But sometimes there's that middle ground, but staying away from the negative side of things. And those, we also have another part of external affairs, which is our social listening team. And within that team, we actually research, I won't say research, we're looking for the online conversations that relate to whatever we're focusing on. So if we're focusing on a storm, what was the last big one? Hurricane Ian, for example. So we're looking for those online conversations, and we built this report. But when we built the report, the way that we write out our statements are very neutral. They're not, if it is something negative, we try to put it in a middle base kind of way where it doesn't sound super negative, so it doesn't sound like we're being biased anyway or we're supporting one thing, especially with our agency because it's very political. Especially for that disaster, we were in Florida, so it's very political there. So our tone is also a part of our brand as well, not just how we look, but also how we speak.
And in our guide, it actually says like, are we warm? Are we cool, conversational, whatever? Those words have been chosen so that we all have a clear picture of how we're supposed to speak when we're speaking on behalf of the agency. So great question, Jennifer. Thank you for that. Victor says, thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience. Excellent presentation, Zella.
Thanks, Victor.
So, are there any other things that we should know about branding, whether it's inside the government or just branding as a whole, that you think would be helpful?
I would say just definitely sticking to your brand identity, understanding what is your brand or what is your agency about, and what does that mean. Sticking to your story, especially even outside of government when you're trying to target people and what you're trying to sell or whatever it is. Really identifying who are you trying to reach, because that is what I want my brand to focus on. That is who I want to target, not trying to please everybody. If I'm not trying to reach everybody, I want to reach whoever actually falls in lines with my morals, with my mission. Those are the big things that I would say to keep in mind when it comes to branding, either within an agency on the government side or outside of the government.
I love that. I love that because you can't reach everybody. Everybody's not for you. So, finally, a lot of what we came to talk about today was trust and really building trust with the public. And you've shown us how you've built trust with the public by showing them in the appropriate way, in a way that, they would appreciate. You've shown us how to incorporate all of the elements of a specific topic into an image in a very artful and beautiful way. You showed us how to engage with folks in our organization and make sure that they have access to all of the tools, how long it takes to get there. Like, you have given us a master class on how this happens, but how it actually builds trust with communities. Can you just speak a little to how you've seen that happen with the work that you've done?
Yeah, I will say because we have gotten to a point where we're working closely to actually make sure that we're reaching people, meeting them where they are. I would say meeting them where they are. That builds a lot of trust. And that also comes along with when we are working on products and we're getting things translated in multiple languages, because that is very important, because we can't reach people. They don't trust us if they can't even understand us. So between working with languages, between also, I would definitely say working with faith based, because they have that relationship with the communities more than we do at a higher level. We're able to all come together and create things that relate to them. And also, they're seeing our products and they're looking similar. They're not looking like, oh, some random person did it, and they're constantly seeing it. We're constantly pushing it out. And also, even between just working together in external affairs and our teams between social media and creative, and making sure that everything that we're creating is in sync. I think those are the big things, because all of this put together is a combination of where you really see that we have improved over the years. We also have gotten feedback all the time from even from our regions or from partners, really enjoying the work that we've came out with. And even with us revamping the website, and seeing all of the changes that the team has done there, we get tons of feedback from that. And those, I would definitely say, are the highlights of that. But I would say it's because we also have all came together and we've identified gaps together, to improve where we were. Because when I came into FEMA in 2016, and coming into headquarters and actually being more involved than what I was when I was a reservist, um, I've been able to just see the change over time. And even though I've been involved in it, I've also seen how we have been able to work more together. And even now, like, has when we came back from Hurricane Ian, I had to work with a lot of my peers that have never deployed before. And coming back from that, they definitely expressed like this was a great experience for me, because I'm able to see the agency from two sides, like the headquarters level and the field level, and understanding the work that goes on in the field and how it's so different, and understanding of how much that we do in headquarters is really to support them. So they were able to come back and come up with ideas. So a lot of what we're doing right now before it gets into the peak of hurricane season is actually working on ways that, one, that we can work better together, And two, where are those things that we see we're lacking that we can improve on? So all of these resources and things are more readily available for everyone once we're in the peak of hurricane season, and we're not just doing stuff because, oh my goodness, this is wrong right now, or we need this, and where is this at? We're not scrambling, it's together. And that is one of the key things that I will say that I was very excited to see when I was in the field this year, because when I did the SharePoint and the external version, when I got into Florida for Hurricane Ian, it was so fun, or just it was very a happy moment to just be like, we already have it, it's already translated, and it saved us so much time. It saved us so much time. And I would definitely say our LEP team probably very much appreciated it, because that was one less thing that they had to worry about. So seeing that all of the work that is done on the back end before things hit the fan, and actually being able to use it and see how it worked in the actual season, was the best part of it. I guess that was the highlight of the whole thing, of seeing it actually work, but also seeing how we can improve on it going into the next season. So one of the big things that we're actually working on now internally is like an evergreen SharePoint messaging page, so that our internal staff can go here and click on a disaster type topic, and they will get a Word document that already has pre-script messaging for them, from key points to social media content to web banner text to links to this is the graphic that relates to this topic. So we're doing more things internally, so that when it gets to these crazy seasons of the year, that we already have those resources, we're not scrambling, and they don't have to ping us so much at headquarters. It's like, oh, it's already there, I can find this on their own, on my own. So yeah, I would say those are the different ways that we're building trust, just doing more together as a team, so that we also are more stitched externally, and we're able to meet people where they are.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So, um, if you have any last questions, please throw them into the chat so that I can ask questions for you and don't just ask the things that I want to ask, Zella.
No, I don't have any questions.
I know
No,
you
this
don't
is
have any
this
questions.
is great. I was making sure.
But I really appreciate it, because a lot of I teach crisis communications while you're teaching branding. And a lot of it is just making sure that you have the materials ahead of time. As much as you can possibly have information already pre-scripted, ready to go. It really reduces the amount of time that you spend scurrying around trying to get support when something tragic happens. That's not the time you want to create talking points. So you want to just massage and edit talking points to fit the situation. So I don't see questions in the chat, but I just want to say thank you, Zella, for all of the work that you do to prepare individuals when disasters strike, and even before, with information from a trusted agency that is consistent and on brand at all times. So thank you for joining us. I got another question. Jennifer, you talked a lot about making sure you are saying the right thing to the right group at the right time, and identifying gaps or misfits.
Misfits. Let me change my slide. So, Jennifer, do you want me to talk about how we identify the different languages or things that we need? Oh.
How do you get the feedback you need to know when there's a problem? She's like,
So for our agency, and it's not going to be the same for other companies, but I can speak to what we do. Oh, Miss Thing.
thanks.
Sorry. So yeah, so it's a mix. So for us, we actually have people that actually go out and identify like what languages, what demographics are in the area that are impacted. And so we get that actual feedback from the field. So we have field staff that is sending that up to headquarters. So at the beginning of a disaster, we're helping supporting And we're still getting feedback because we have teams that go out ahead of time. So we have IMAT teams, and so these teams go out before the disaster hits, and they're already on the ground. They're already working with state and local officials. So we are actually getting that feedback from them. And then we continue that even just throughout the year with working with our regions to identify any gaps or any things that we need to focus on that actually impacts their areas of the states that they support. So between our regions and between our field staff, that is how we're getting that information of anything that we need to focus on. And then also just being on the ground ourselves, we're able to identify some of those issues.
And I'll add that there are lots of feedback loops that are even beyond what Zella just shared, from congressionals to state emergency management officials who get information from individuals that come directly to them. Concerns sometimes about how we do things. Let's be clear. Zella is amazing. Our team is amazing. They put together a just so much content that has so much value and is quality. But at the same time, sometimes either we get it wrong or we think that we're going in the right direction and we need feedback from the public to help us to improve it. And that's a constant loop within FEMA from a lot of different sources. So just as many people like me who think that a lot of the things that we do are just amazing, there are other people that say, well, hey, I need to be able to find things better on our website, which is one of the projects that I know Zella worked on too, which is redoing the entire website, so that it was more user friendly and allowed people to access information very quickly. But that came over iteration. So
Yeah,
an
and
important question.
yeah, and we also do working groups sometimes too. So our web team, especially even on our ready.gov side of the house, when we work with contractors for like the ad campaigns that we do, they actually do working groups to get feedback on things that we're about to push out. Also, when we have disasters, we also hire local hires, so people who actually live in the area that are impacted. And we also use them for feedback as well because they are still outsiders coming into this. So beyond that, and also working with our community-based groups, we're able to get more information as well. And leadership is constantly having conversations, and then that they trickle that down to the rest of the staff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great questions, Jennifer. Thank you for so many amazing questions. So if there aren't any additional ones, we are gonna let Zella have 11 minutes of her time back. But thank you so much for joining us today. This presentation will be available in a recording. So if you participated in the session and registered, you should get a link with the recording. We will also post it to YouTube so that people can have access to it that way. And we are just extremely appreciative of these conversations. So if you know of individuals who have great insight on how to do public affairs type tasks really well, then please reach out to me so that we can interview them to provide great insight to all of you. So until next time, thank you, Zella. It's been amazing. We'll see you next time on the Public Affairs Convo with the San Francisco Federal Executive Board.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.